Welcome back to MyFinJourney. Today's going to be an exciting conversation with Sally Gimon, a real estate investor and tax strategy educator whose journey into investing started during a difficult time in her life when her mother became sick. She went from making money to making a lot more money, which is the goal of you, the listener at MyFinJourney. It's really to understand what skills to pick up and how to make more money. But along that journey, it's also to say, how do you keep more of what you make? In Sally's situation, she went from a 22% tax bracket to a 24% tax bracket. She got a call saying, hey, you're making more money. Congratulations. And you owe more in taxes. And that led her down this journey to say, hey, how do I continue to make more, but pay less in taxes legally? Is there a structure out there? Is there something that I can learn? Is there something that I can implement? And honestly, I work with over 291 investors. This question comes up consistently. And my answer to them is usually just focus on making more. But with conversations with people like Sally, you can really start to unpack the areas that you don't know to improve your efficiency and help you grow faster. Sally, welcome to MyFinJourney.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate you letting me talk to your listeners and everything.
No, it's our pleasure. So Sally, when I was reading your story, with respect, to be honest, I was like 22 to 24%. It's a 2% increase. It's not the end of the world. But I think for you, it really kickstarted a journey to say, hey, look, I worked hard to make my money. I shouldn't have to pay, over $90,000 in taxes. There needs to be a better way. So help us understand, Sally, what did that journey look like, and ultimately, how did it get you to where you are today?
I appreciate the opening. I became a real estate investor when my mom got sick 2,000 miles from home. In 2019, with my mentor, I wholesaled 7 bank-owned properties nationwide. They thought I was a rock star in my real estate group, but if you remember a Super Bowl commercial, you're not a rock star. I had $50,000 saved for taxes because I thought I was doing the right thing. All of a sudden, on April 4th, my CPA calls to say, congratulations, your tax bracket went from 22% to 24%. Guess what? You owe $94,000 in taxes. I'm like, what? I know taxes, but I didn't realize it had changed so much. I told him about my $50,000. He's like, set an appointment with me. We'll get you on a payment plan. You'll pay interest and penalties. I contacted friends of mine in my real estate group, and they're like, oh, that happened to me too. Oh, I know about this. A great book, Mustafa, for your listeners to read is The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. It's a little bit old. It's from the 1930s. His examples are old, but I went to bed crying that night. I don't know about your family, but my entire family, an extra $44,000. Are you crazy? Maybe they'll lend me $4, but not $44,000. I wake up the next morning. I knew one of my friend's husband does HELOC loans, so I sent her an email because I was going to with all the money I made in 2019, I paid off my townhouse because I thought I was doing good things. So I took a HELOC off my house, so I'm no longer tax-free. And then I had read an article about the Rockefellers Spendthrift Trust called The Office, maybe 4 months earlier. I'm like, well, if the Rockefellers can save taxes, why can't I save taxes? It took me 5 months of research. And when I started both my business and beneficial Spendthrift Trust in September of 2020, I started teaching a mastermind in my Phoenix real estate group for other investors. And I'm a student of thinking into results. And my coach said, you're playing too small. You need to start your own business. And I'm glad I listened to her. I'm helping so many people now.
So let's dive deeper. I love the story, Sally, and congratulations on
Oh,
all the
thank you.
success that you've had and all the success that you'll continue to have, right? Because it's not just about the real estate success, which you mentioned, which is awesome. It's not just about the tax strategy success, which you mentioned, which is awesome, but it's also about all the different people's lives that you touch and how you enable them to grow and scale. But sometimes, Sally, I think people say something with confidence and it lands well, but the listener doesn't really understand what it means. And I want to zoom in because you mentioned 2 types of trusts that I would think with a high degree of confidence that people have never even heard of. They've heard set up a trust. They might have heard set up a revocable or irrevocable trust. But when you mention a business trust or a spendthrift trust, I really want to understand from your perspective, what are the 1 to 5 types of trusts that everyone should be aware of to then understand which trust is the right one for them? Because sometimes when you're on the receiving end of being sold a product, you just have to have blind faith in people that they'll do right for you. But people can't always do right for you if they don't know everything that's going on in your life. So it's a
Correct.
bit of a like, catch 22. So I really want to slow down and understand maybe the most popular types of trust that you would recommend for people.
The most popular trusts out there, 97% of the trusts sold every year, are what my mom and dad had and what Susie Orman talks about on PBS television, the family trust or the living trust. There's nothing wrong with that trust. It avoids probate and then it dissolves because both my mom and dad were the grantors or the settlers of the trust. When my mom passed away first, when my dad passed away, I petitioned my two brothers to put my parents' house in Goodyear, Arizona into the trust. We just had a change of deed. My older brother was the executor of the estate. He's like, I don't trust you. My younger brother's like, how much would we have saved? I'm like, oh, I'm not even going to tell you. So that's, most people know about the family trust or the living trust. It's usually, I'm going to ballpark it about $1,000, depending who you work with. What I
And
deal
that's like
with,
a what? A one-time setup, correct? Like it's a
one-time
one-time
setup,
setup.
it only
And it,
lasts as long as whoever is the people who are the trustees, as long as they're alive. I had gone to a meeting with my parents because my dad was very proactive, in case something happened. And I said to the financial planner, I'm like, can I use this trust for my real estate? And he's like, absolutely not. You're not a beneficiary. I'm a beneficiary of it, but I couldn't use their living trust unless they changed the bylaws. My dad's like, I don't want to do that. What I deal with is not your mom and dad's trust. This is what the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Carnegies, and the Kennedys put into the tax code back in February of 1913. Super rich families knew about this. It comes from England way back when King Henry VIII, that famous king who chopped off his wife's heads, started the Church of England. Hey, nice guy, he's going to now divorce them. He went to go tax the lords and ladies of England. They went back to the 12th century, the Magna Carta that was put in effect for King John I. It's contract law that came to the colonies while we were still part of England. The law firm I work on behalf of was only started 78 years ago by a Harvard law professor, but they have inherited a trust that is going to turn 365 years old in 2026, before we were a country. Our current tax structure went into effect February 1913, and it's only grown and grown since then. And, it took me 5 months and a $94,000 tax bill, that unexpected tax bill. I don't know about you, Mustafa, but I went to bed crying that night. I'm like, there has to be a better way to do things. There's also, I don't know much about a land trust because I was doing real estate in Phoenix. A lot of the people who come from Chicago or Illinois know about the land trust. I don't know much about it. I know it keeps their information private, but I don't think it saves them taxes. But don't quote me on that. One of the things I do run into quite a bit with the business I do, when someone Googles Spendthrift Trust, you're going to get a whole bunch of different law firms that offer this, very specialized. There are a million active attorneys in the United States. Only 4% are trust attorneys. I don't know who's selling the Red River Spendthrift Trust. It's these people are buying something, they're spending $15,000 and they have no help. And they get on my calendar and I'm like, I don't want to give you any information. I don't have anything to do with this. I've never read your trust. I'm not a trust attorney. I know what I sell and I know who stands behind it. You're going to have to find somebody else to help you with this. And I feel bad because these people are like, how do I work with this? I'm like, go back to the person who sold it to you. That's all I can tell you.
so let's zoom in here. But maybe before we do, I want to pause for a second. And I want to say, if you're watching this episode and if you're finding immense value, don't hit the like button. Don't subscribe. Don't share with anybody. Don't do anything just yet. Just keep listening because I
Yes,
think some of the stuff that Sally is saying is more technical than people realize. Sally,
yes,
you mentioned a lot of people in part of this statement. You mentioned Carnegie, you mentioned Rockefeller, you mentioned DuPont. People don't usually mention DuPont. Anyway, you mentioned like the Americans who built America, essentially. The
exactly.
people who were more wealthy than the country who wrote tax law, essentially. Right?
Exactly.
This is before there was any idea of, donating to your local senator to like, have your will imposed on like the law or anything like that. This is before the tax code was codified in the way that we know it.
Correct.
And naturally, the people who had the most to lose were the people who had the most money.
Oh,
right?
they
So,
they 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 wrote they wrote the tax code in on their behalf, if that makes sense, and
yeah,
regular people. I mean, if you don't mind me telling a story,
sure.
I talked to a 22-year-old girl to a woman, excuse me, woman today, who's a digital marketer. She makes $120,000 a year and lives in Kentucky. I'm going to save her over $4,000 per month in June, July, August, September, each month. And she's just like, I just saw your TikTok video. How come? And I'm like, this is not taught in school. I mean, she's crying because she's pregnant. She's 8 months pregnant. And she's like, I can now save so much money. I can do a nursery and not worry about where the money's going to come from. I love to change people's lives.
And that's the thing, right? It's so powerful, but you touched on not only the fact, like the genesis of like how it was structured and how it helps people, but then you also touched on how people get it wrong, right? You mentioned a company that sells a product. Maybe it's more expensive than your product. Maybe it's cheaper. I don't
To be
necessarily,
honest, $5,000 cheaper. Yes.
right? So it is cheaper, the product, right? But fundamentally, it's like, hey, that ongoing service of how to actually set up the trust and then manage the trust and make sure the trust is working properly for you. So I want to understand from your perspective, Sally, when you're looking at this specific trust structure, who is it right for? You mentioned the digital marketer. Maybe you can elaborate on that use case on that
Correct.
person, or maybe somebody else. But then ultimately, like, why does, if the trust is set up correctly, why does somebody like me buying the trust need somebody like you selling the trust to service the trust and to make sure that things are going properly? I just want to understand, full circle, if that makes
Correct.
sense.
Your CPA or your financial advisor will probably tell you the IRS wrote a memo. It's dated August 9th of 2023, where they literally say they do not like tax code 643B, B like Bravo. They do not like the irrevocable, complex, discretionary, non-grantor, spendthrift trust. The IRS cannot change a tax code. Only Congress can. I don't have a crystal ball, but unfortunately, TSA agents didn't get paid for 9 weeks. How do you live not getting paid? How do you buy food? How do you buy gas? But too many presidents, too many senators, too many Congress people, the people who are in their super funds, you donate all the money to their campaigns, they know it. I call it the secret of the rich. I just want to help everyday people. Another person we were talking earlier before we got on, he's a contractor. He and his son run a contracting business down in Georgia. And he's just like, how much are you going to save us? And I'm like, this is your money. He goes, we can buy new equipment. And I'm like, you can do whatever you want with the money you're going to save. And, you leave a legacy. It goes from generation to generation. It avoids, you're too young to know this, but I used to work in Medicare. If people make too much money, every October, the IRS goes back 2 years and looks at 1040 tax returns and their supercomputers add it all together. So if you're 65 and they're going to look at how much you're getting from Social Security, how much you're getting from pensions, if you're making any wages, if you do a 401k withdrawal, God help me, we all were told to invest in our 401ks, max it out. If you do a SEP withdrawal, if you have capital gains taxes, interest income taxes, dividend income taxes, rental income taxes, and royalty income taxes, and add it all together. This is 2025 numbers. They haven't come out with 2026 yet. But if you're single and make $106,000 or more, or if you're married and make $212,000 or more, they're going to put a surcharge on parts B and D of your Medicare. And they say 3.5 million Americans, senior Americans, are paying the surcharge, and they have no idea why or how to get out of it. I mean, there's so much information out there, like you said, that how do you know if it's true or if it's not true? It's kind of scary.
I agree, Sally, and it can almost be information overload. So I
Yes.
guess, Sally, let's dive a bit deeper. You mentioned that you went on this journey. You mentioned that you got this big tax bill, and then 5 months later, you had the solution. Sometimes people wonder, like, what degree do you have? What accreditation do you have? How are you the person that can actually solve this problem for me? Basically, people are wondering, like, you know, where's the social proof? How can I trust you in a nice way?
Mhm.
Right. So,
Correct.
from your perspective, given how complex these topics are, how do you get comfortable with these different trust vehicles to then be comfortable enough to vouch for them and to ultimately sell them to other people?
Fantastic question. When I was researching this, I did contact several different people. Finally, the person I went with, the reason I went with him is he's just like, the law firm is 78 years old. When you become a private client of the law firm, it was started by Paul Benson. Now his grandson and great grandson run the law firm. The name of the law firm has changed. Uh, families like that, but it's now called Rosen and Rosen. And he's just like, when you become a private client, you're going to get a certification saying if you get questioned by the IRS, they will defend you free of charge. With Benson Financial Trust, not a single trust has ever been audited, but back in 1982, one trust, a beneficial trust, was questioned by a senior IRS agent. He went down to Texas to the law firm, spent 5 hours in the boardroom going over everything. He approved the trust. He went back to Washington, D.C. He wrote an unsolicited letter back to Benson Financial Trust. They've given this, it's called the Myers letter. I have a copy of it. And he said, this is how I approved it. This is kind of funny. He was a senior IRS agent for 27 years. He retired from the IRS and became an agent, an associate, just like I have. And he went back through all his Rolodex and paperwork and contacted all the clients he questioned and audited to tell them about how they could save taxes. One of the things that people are nervous about, there's a Forbes article out there. This is true. The IRS really cracked down on this, and they went after a company in Colorado back in 2023, and he arrested the 3 top people selling their Spendthrift trust. And then they went after everyone who had bought one, and they had to pay back taxes and fees because they didn't set it up correctly. The reason I went with the company I'm with, the Benson Financial Group, Paul Benson was a Harvard law professor. A textbook that trust attorneys study in law school is called Scott and Asher on Trust, 5th edition. Paul Benson helped write that book. And, just to know they have 800,000 clients and not a single trust has been audited. I know when I do my real estate, right now I have 19 properties. When I do my real estate, I know they have my back if something goes wrong. I did a presentation to an Atlanta real estate group, and one guy raises his hand. He goes, well, I only paid $5,000 for my Spendthrift trust. And I said, what kind of real estate do you do? And he goes, I have 5, 6 Airbnbs. I'm like, someone trips and falls in your Airbnb. Who do you go to? When they try to sue you, who do you go to get help? And he's just like, I don't know. And I'm like, to me, that's a scary, scary scenario. I know who to contact. I have their names saved in my phone. I know exactly who I can call to get help.
It's very powerful, Sally. And I do agree with the value of having the right contact person, because sometimes you don't have any contact person, and it is very scary because when that person contacts you to say that they fell in your Airbnb, in your property, or when you're running that, manufacturing business or that digital marketing person and you're getting sued or there's a concern, oftentimes you're stressed. Oftentimes you have a lot of
Completely.
different spinning plates in the air that you're just trying to manage. And it's nice to have a partner on your team who can help lighten the load. But Sally, while all of this is great, it doesn't answer maybe the fundamental question that I have right now. Fundamentally, if you were speaking to like a 5th grader, how would you describe what a spendthrift trust is? Who it's for, how it helps them, and maybe who it's not for?
The Spendthrift Trust is a legal document that is in our tax code. Paul Benson wrote 5 separate trusts to save very specific taxes. You are not tax-free. Here, I'm in Wade County, North Carolina, Raleigh. They shame us for our food. When I go to the grocery store, I pay 2% for my food, but if I buy soda, chips, candy, or God help me, ice cream, I love my ice cream, I have to pay 7%. So I'm still paying taxes. I'd say with the business trust, is for people to stop paying federal and state income taxes when they own a business, they're self-employed, they're a professional, or they're an entrepreneur. Tell people, think about this. If you make $100,000 a year, no matter where you live, 7 states don't have state income taxes, but you will save 5 figures in taxes. The more you make, the more you save. Personally, my first property in the trust, I bought it in July of 2020 for $20,000. It was a contract, a reverse mortgage, bank-owned reverse mortgage contract that was going to go to auction. It was being held up because of COVID restrictions. I didn't start my trust until September of 2020. I'm on the phone going, how do I change this over? They walk me through it, getting 2 bills of sales, moving it from my LLC to myself. By the way, I don't know if people realize this. 40% of LLCs S Corps and C Corps get sued every year because it's public information. Anyone can go online to the Secretary of State or the Corporation Commission. I moved the property in. When it finally went to auction, August 21st of 2021, 13 months later, it went for $64,980. Without lifting a hammer, I got to make $44,980. But at a 24% tax bracket, this is what's so important. I saved $10,365. I don't have to pay to the federal government. I didn't have to pay Arizona state income taxes on the money either. And I just put it into more real estate. And I've grown I don't want to say my empire, but I've got 19 properties now. I'm growing it and growing it. And I'm not trying to crow, but I'm helping four of my nieces and nephews pay their student loans. My one nephew, I love Gregory, but he's an engineer. They just had to buy a minivan because they have 2 daughters. I paid for the minivan. I mean, it's amazing how I can help my family while I'm helping other people at the same time. So again, you've got to be an active investor. Mm, My last beneficial trust I sold is a husband and wife. They're in their 70s. They have a lot of dividend income money coming in, and they actually saw a YouTube video. And when I asked him about the IRMA surcharge, he was unaware that they were paying $800 per person per month. And the wife is like, "There has to be a cheaper way." And she started crying on the Zoom meeting. I'm like, happy tears, but it was just nice to help, you know, people who worked hard to get the money they have to help them save taxes.
If you were in an elevator with somebody who works in a W-2 income, he works for
Mhm.
somebody else, he's married, he has 2 kids, he makes $250K plus a year, he lives in New York, New Jersey, California, whatever, a state with an expensive, tax bracket, let's say,
Oregon. People don't
right?
realize how expensive Oregon
Or,
is.
beautiful, Oregon, right? So pick your poison, pick your state, right? And you're talking to that person, right? And you're just talking to them about life, getting to know them. You're not selling them a product or anything. But in your mind, you're always thinking about your work. Which trust would be worth them learning about?
Unfortunately, I cannot help W-2 income earners because when they get their paycheck on Friday, their taxes are taken out by the company. Google says 35% of W-2 income earners have a side hustle. I was one of them. I was a Medicare broker, worst job in the world. When you tell a 65-year-old lady, hey, part of your Social Security is going to pay for your Medicare, they have a mouth like a sailor. I mean, like, they curse you out. I actually got fired. Can I tell you a funny story about that?
Sure, sure.
We were working on a special campaign in Texas and for Medicare. I had talked to this woman who had to start her policy by November 30th, and it was getting late in the month. She calls me back and she goes, "Oh, yeah, I want to get this started." I'm like, "Well, has anything changed on your account?" She's like, "I only moved 4 miles." I'm like, "Let me change your address." She moved 4 miles into New Mexico. I'm licensed for New Mexico. The product we're selling is not in New Mexico. It's only in Texas. I give her the new information. I send an email to my manager, who used to be a defensive tackle on a football team. 6'6", 350 pounds, humongous man. He comes up to me and he goes, "Did you sell the product?" I'm like, "No, but she's got my extension to call me back." She calls me back 2 days later. I'm sending him a text. He's not at his desk. I issue the policy. He comes over. He's standing in front of me while I'm finishing up another phone call. And he's like, "Come with me. I have to talk to you in private." I'm like, "Okay." He's just like, "You sold a product that we're not, I'm licensed in the state," but he goes, "That's not the product we're working on right now. I've been told I have to fire you." I'm like, "That's okay. Tomorrow I wholesale a property and I make $8,000. I don't need this crummy job anymore." He looks at me like, "What?" And I was a W-2 income earner who did have a side hustle. I just did a Forex convention 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, and Forex investors get double tax, capital gains and interest income taxes. The gentleman who runs the group, I had been in contact with them for 18 months trying to tell him, "I would love to talk to your group. You'll have to do everything." He introduced me and he goes, "If I listened to Sally in 2025, I would have saved $182,000, and I didn't listen to her." And I'm like, wow, he's a great Forex investor. Someone has to decide, I'm going to be honest, is it worth doing this or not doing this? I started my trust in September of 2020. Since having the trust, I have wholesaled 28 properties. I have 12 notes. I have 5 rentals, and I have 7 seller financing properties that I pay no taxes on. And, you know, I started you start real estate investing, and then you start growing and growing, and then you got to decide when it's right for you to start looking into things, because sometimes you don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Sally, I love that. When you say you don't know what you don't know, I think it's very powerful. I, for example, work with over 291 investors. I've made them over $20 million over the last couple of
Congratulations.
years. Thank you. Now, for a lot of those guys, girls, families, it's not only about making money, but it's okay that we're making a lot of money. The next step is how do we save on taxes?
Yes.
If one of those investors was listening to this episode, and if they were looking at their 1099, or if they were looking at their K1, if they were looking at their tax statement saying, hey, I made 10% this year, hey, I made 100K, whatever their numbers are, why would it make sense for them to reach out to you to learn what they don't know?
One of the reasons to reach out, this is a if I can tell another true story.
Sure.
I'm in a national real estate group. I sat down. They gave us assigned seats. The gentleman sitting next to me, his name's Patrick. He's from Chicago. He has 100 doors in Chicago. He's worth a lot of money. He wears a pinky ring, like a 5-carat pinky ring, and a gold Rolex watch. He's madder than a wet hen because one of his renters in Chicago's dog got out, bit the mailman. The mailman hired an attorney. The attorney found 4 of his 100 LLCs in Illinois. The mailman got paid $400,000 for a dog bite, and he's just like, I thought I was covered, And I'm just like, we had a conversation. He became my client. I've never seen Patrick's RV, but let's say it's $250,000 RV. Very easy to do if you think. Back in 2000, August of 2024, he's driving it. He couldn't slow down. He hit the car in front of him that pushed her into the car in front of her. They get out, exchange information. His insurance card shows the trust name because it's in his trust. All his assets are in the trust. Patrick's Illinois driver's license showed his name and home address. We can't change that. He needs that to drive. His insurance, an at-fault accident, is probably going to go up, but his beneficial trust is making so much money, he probably doesn't care. 4 weeks after the accident, he gets a $90,000 lawsuit for pain and suffering because her car was damaged. He calls me going, Sally, what the heck do I do? I'm like, okay, you have the lawsuit. You know the attorney's name. You know the plaintiff's name. You're going to copy the first page of your trust, write a letter, and say you can't get blood from a stone. He goes, that's all I have to do? I'm like, do it. Keep me informed. Calls me back 2 months later. He's like, I've heard nothing. I'm like, Patrick, this is the power of your beneficial spendthrift trust. You save taxes. You save your information is completely private. You leave a legacy, and all lawsuits become frivolous. And he's just like, I'm sorry I yelled at you. I'm like, that's okay. A $90,000 a lawsuit. That's a lot of money. Another bad story for you. I'm sorry to keep telling bad stories. I taught for 18 months in my Phoenix real estate group. The gentleman who ran the group, he sat in on the conversation with me at meetings every day, and he shut down 14 LLCs. He kept his S corp opened because he had business credit on it. I keep telling people, do yourself a favor, shut things down. He had a multi-million-dollar house. I don't know if you've ever been to Phoenix, but there's a Mayo Clinic up in Scottsdale. He had a multi-million-dollar house very close to the Mayo Clinic. I don't know what happened there, but something happened, and the person who was renting it sued the S corp for $1 million. He's just like, well, I have the trust. I'm like, Zach, they didn't sue the trust. They sued your S corp, and because of that, he shut down the real estate group. I know how he's doing now, but he had to come up with $1 million to pay for whatever the lawsuit was. And he's just like, I'm reinvesting all my profits into other places. And I mean, it affected him. And it affects a lot of people when you get sued.
It's very powerful, Sally, because it highlights that you don't know what you don't know. It highlights how much your spendthrift trust or your business trust can protect you. In terms of legacy planning, there's also different types of dynastic trusts. Maybe, if you have the experience, could you speak to some of those in terms of the beginning of our conversation alluded to the Rockefellers, different groups, different families that have been able to maintain wealth past 3 generations, which is very rare.
Correct. Again, the only thing I'm very well known about for trusts is the family trust, because my mom and dad, the original name was the Gimon Family Trust. We laugh about that. you know, to sell my father's car, I had to go to the DMV and, change all the paperwork. Thought I did everything correctly. Stood 4 hours in line in Goodyear, Arizona, dealing with this. We sell my dad's car. The gentleman who bought the car went to go change the tags on the car. He was told he couldn't do that. I had to go back with him, stand 4 hours in line again with a person who I met for 10 minutes earlier. I don't know how hard it is for you, but to have, there's only so much you can say in 4 hours. It comes out that the person who didn't change, who I gave the information to, goes, I didn't file the paperwork correctly. I'm like, you just wasted 8 hours of my life because you didn't do your job correctly? And, you know, we were able to take care of my parents' estate well, but when we sold their house, they bought the house 23 years earlier for only $140,000. We got to sell their house for over $400,000, and the long-term capital gains on it, the estate paid for it because my older brother wouldn't put the house into the Spendthrift trust at the time, and my younger brother's like, he owes me money. I'm like, that's between the two of you. You fight it out, But this is for people who, I don't want to say who are well-heeled, but people who are start making money. I mean, this 22-year-old digital marketer, she was clueless how much money she was making. And she's like, my tax guy is telling me how much my taxes have gone up from 10% to now 24%. And she's just like, I don't know if I can save enough money doing what I'm doing. And to know that the $4,000 she's going to save per month for the rest of the year, $4,000 each month, she's just like, that changes everything for her projection and everything.
It's very powerful, Sally. And when you talk to these different people, first of all, maybe help us understand, where are these people finding you? Are they coming to you with education already about trust, or is it just a situation where they genuinely don't know what's possible and you're really
I,
guiding them through each step?
I would say it's 90, they don't know, 10% they do know. This sounds funny, but I got onto TikTok when I hired a TikTok coach. It's kind of funny. We're still friends. July 23rd of 2023, because I had no idea. He's like, swipe, and I'm like, it's not working. He's like, swipe up, not left. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's not a dating app. I get more clients from TikTok than all other social media put together, but I post on LinkedIn, I post on YouTube, Facebook, whatever we call X or Twitter now. What's another one? Instagram. I get a lot of clients from Instagram. That surprises me too.
If you were to look at your life maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, would you have thought it would be possible to sell a product like trusts on a platform like Instagram?
This is a true story. I announced to my family by an email, hey, I'm now on Twitter. And my four nieces like, oh God, don't dance. You're a horrible dancer. I'm like, I'm not dancing on Twitter. On TikTok. I'm just doing videos. And my one niece, my oldest niece, is like, you have 100% more followers on your one account than I do. And she goes, I'm trying to post every day. She's crazy stuff, like what she cooks and things like this. And I'm like, Samantha, I'm just a TikTok queen now. And she's like, you really are. I'm like, I don't dance. So it sounds kind of boring, but what I talk about is the same thing over and over again. I don't use client names. I just say, like, I just put a post up today about Arizona independent truck driver. This actually came from an affiliate, but it originally started as TikTok. His wife contacted me on TikTok and she goes, where in the country are you? And I said, East Coast. She goes, can you call this phone number 2 p.m. tomorrow and talk to my husband? So I called the number on TikTok and I'm like,
And
hi,
is
this
that
is Sun.
is that normal for you? That type of message?
No, that message was a little bit odd, but other people, I tell people, get on my calendar. Like I have ways to do this. I call the number. This gruff guy answers. And I'm like, hi, this is Sally from TikTok. Your wife says you and I need to talk. He's like, what the hell is she up to now? I'm like, well, she wants you to save taxes. So, I'm talking to him. He's at a mandatory truck stop. I'm telling him how much we can save. And he's just like, they're in Nevada, so no state income taxes. And he's just like, well, that's $20,000. He goes, I don't know my truck. I have 4 more payments. And I'm like, you can pay off your truck with the money you're saving. I told him about my affiliate. So every time he goes to a truck stop, he walks around to all the people, a guy sitting around, and he gives them a business card with his affiliate. So today's story about the truck driver from Tucson is he got paid $1,000 for it. The gentleman from today, him and his wife, 24% tax bracket, they're going to save $53,000 that they start in 2025. And he's just like, that's going to pay for my diesel fuel. He goes, do you know how expensive, and now, thinking now, how expensive diesel fuel is? And, God help him, he's driving 100 hours a week doing his job, and he gets to save money. His wife is just like, we can get our new roof on our house. This changes our lives.
Sally, all of this is great and it's beautiful. It's empowering. For me, it's a question of, is it the 90,000 you saved? Is it the 1,000 that he made, being an affiliate? What makes it worth it? But from a different perspective, Sally, from the government's perspective, right? Like, there's always the saying that there's two things that's certain in life: death and taxes,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So
It's a
from
taboo
your
subject. It really is.
so from your perspective, if you're the US government, if you're looking at, the tax structure that you're leveraging, right? Because the tax code is very complex. There are a lot of gaps. But most people don't spend the time learning the gaps. From your perspective, right? Why is it that not why is it that the gap hasn't been closed? Because I feel like we addressed that. Maybe why isn't that most people don't know this? And maybe it's more common for like a cat video to be trending online versus helping somebody make an extra thousand or save an extra $1,000 or save an extra 100,000 of dollars. I really want to understand this because a lot of people, for whatever reason, don't take action. And I want this conversation to just say, hey, don't buy the product from Mustafa. I don't sell the product. Don't buy the product from Sally. She does sell the product. Just learn about it. Just take one step to say that not buying a $20,000 product is costing you $100,000 in taxes. Just get some data. And that's
Correct.
really what I want you to help me address right now.
Well, first off, I've been called unpatriotic and things like that. My father served 27 years in the military. We were talking about living in New Jersey. He was at the Philadelphia Navy Yards. My dad was alive when I started the trust, and he's just like, wow. Yeah, if I knew about this, because he was always a 1099, he was always a W-2 income earner, and he's just like, go with it. The whole thing that what people don't know, I thought I was doing everything correctly. Another true story: the gentleman who ran my Phoenix real estate group, we went to the gentleman who's the CPA for the National Real Estate Group. We set an appointment with him. We sat down. We discussed this, and he says, "Oh, okay, thank you for telling me this." And we're like, "That's it." And, we walked out, I tried to keep a smile on my face because we spent half an hour with him. I walked out and like, I don't get it. And Zach goes, he makes $700 setting up an LLC. He makes $3,000 setting up an S Corp. And he goes, he doesn't want to help his clients. He wants to keep doing what he's doing. And I'm like, I never thought of that. I would think anyone would want to help anybody else, but it's not true. And, I'm not trying to be political, but if you remember 14 years ago when Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were debating, and Hillary Clinton accused Donald Trump of not paying taxes, and he smirked at her and said, because I'm intelligent. Actually, his father, Frank Trump, started both the business and beneficial trust back in 1972 when the city of New York sued Donald and Frank Trump for discrimination. I have a news article where Frank Trump says, I'm never going to be sued again for doing business my way. Our president is a trust baby, if that makes sense. And one of the groups I'm in, through JV Directory, one of the guys who runs it, his girlfriend works for a Manhattan law firm that won't talk to anyone unless they're worth $8 million. The average person joining my national real estate group is a 56-year-old gentleman who's trying to make some money in real estate in the next 10 years before they retire. If you do 2 wholesale deals in 1 year and make $20,000 on each wholesale deal, you've paid for the trust and you're now leaving a legacy for future generations. I mean, my first deal only saved me $10,000, but it didn't stop me. I mean, I'm not trying to crow, but I probably have saved over $80,000 just in real estate investing in the past 6 years easily because of what I'm doing.
And do you know anybody in your family who is doing this?
I don't know if you realize that Charlie Brown's sister's name is Sally. So
Okay.
whenever my nieces or nephews have a birthday, I get them a silver coin with peanuts on it. My 17-year-old nephew who lives in Hawaii had his birthday in April. I mean, the coin cost me $39, big deal. But, to a 17-year-old kid, I get an extra $40. My brother, his name's Liam, he's a beneficiary. Both all of them are beneficiaries of the trust. But when they file their 1041 tax return, they're going to file it separately, same EIN number as my EIN number, but it'll be a separate tax return. My brother, this is a true story. He was a Secret Service agent and he had a stroke. He's now doing real estate investing in Hawaii, and he makes better money than I do. And so he's doing what's called subject to real estate. And he's just like, I can't believe I'm saving this much money in taxes. I'm like, I'm glad I taught you something good to work with, Liam.
If you were to sit down, Sally, and spend the time to try to quantify how much money you think you've saved people in taxes, what would that number look like?
The last time I did this, I didn't do it for 2025, but I did it for 2024. I had saved my clients, from what they told me, $191.98 million.
So over $1 million you've saved, and how many,
Over 2 million easily, because I haven't done my 2025 numbers yet.
and how many clients is that across?
I now have 168 clients as of today.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
For you, when you look at it, all of this happened because you had, let's say, a $90,000 bill.
Yes.
What would the value have been qualitatively or quantitatively for you if you learned this, let's say, 20 years ago or 40 years ago?
Unfortunately, I didn't become, well, I do tax liens through my Roth IRA, which I can't touch until I'm 59 and a half. But if I had this 20 years ago, or even if I had this 9 years ago, I would have not have had a $94,000 tax bill that I did pay. I took a HELOC off my paid off townhouse. I ended up paying that off and selling it. I would not have gone to bed crying. The people who I called in my real estate group, asking them who's a good attorney, get out of $94,000. They all had these horror stories about paying so much in taxes too when their tax bracket changes. Seriously, when I just did my taxes for 2025, how much real estate I now have and how much I'm making on it, I would now be at 32% tax bracket that, instead of using 24% tax bracket. But I didn't start real estate investing until I was 53 years old, and shame on me. I knew about tax deeds way back. Funny story. I graduated high school in 1984, and I went to the dentist in 1984, and I read an article about Arnold Schwarzenegger, the governor in the movies and everything else. The whole article talks about how he came to the United States from Austria and was a bricklayer, and he started doing tax liens in Los Angeles, and he's worth more in tax liens than what he got made in movies in 1984. And I started following him, and why didn't I start doing tax liens back in 1984? I didn't start doing that until I was 53 years old. Silly me.
I think that's the power of not taking action. It's very
Yes.
hard to quantify until you sit down and you really think about it. And if you're watching this episode, I think that's what I would want the takeaway to be. It's
Yes.
not necessarily to reach out to me to set up a trust or Sally. It's just to learn what you don't know and just to help yourself on your financial journey. That's why we call the podcast MyFinJourney. So Sally, if somebody's watching this episode, if they're curious to learn more, maybe if there's some complexity in their situation that we haven't uncovered, maybe they're not a W-2 employee, maybe they run their own company, or maybe they have a side hustle on the side. If they think that they can learn more and benefit from your services, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
On all my social media, I have a strange last name. It's a made up Slavic name, Gimon. So you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on X, LinkedIn, other places. My main thing is if you would like to find out how much you can save in taxes, set up a free 30-minute tax breakthrough session with me at www.thetrustisyou.com/scheduling. I take you out to a free website called NerdWallet. I send you the link when I send you the email, and I give you all the information. The gentleman, the contractor that I sold the trust today, he and I spoke 4 weeks ago, gave him the information, and he's just like, I can't believe I sat on this for an entire month. And he's just like, my wife says to me, June 1st was yesterday. Why aren't we saving taxes now? And he's just like, that's why I have to contact you today, because his wife was remembering things. So, some people do it super quickly, get the trust started right away. Other people take 6 months. It's whatever works for you. I do have, when you send an email, If someone has an LLC, an S Corp, or a C Corp, I have a friend that I work with. She can get them a business loan to help get the money to start the trust. But again, I can't tell you how many people this week alone. But let's go with last week. Last week I have 19 meetings. Not a single person of those 19 meetings has started a trust yet. They all got their personal email, but they're waiting to take action. And if you don't mind me saying this, my Phoenix real estate group, when COVID happened, we got on to Zoom and we would have a meeting every morning, 8 o'clock on Zoom, and there'd be 44 to 60 people on there. And I would go through it and I'm like, oh, only 5 of us have done a deal in the last 2 years. It was sad how many people spent all this money to get into the real estate group and not doing deals. I mean, there's so much in real estate out there that you can do so easily.
I love that. It speaks to the opportunity that we have in America. It speaks to maybe the knowledge gap, and it speaks to the importance of building a strong team. So, Sally, I've loved the conversation with you
Thank
throughout.
you.
I find that it is very valuable, insightful. There is a lot to learn. And that's ultimately the point of this episode of this podcast, right? So, if you've been listening so far, reach out to Sally. We'll include the links below because that's the goal, to really help you on your journey, to help you keep more of what you make. And we'll see you in the next episode, guys. Bye.